Thriving Family Show. I'm your host, Marshawna Starr Hoyte. Thank you so much for joining me. This show was created to discuss various topics with the goal of providing information that families can take and implement in order to transition from a place of merely surviving to a place of thriving. Sometimes I'll just be on the show to give the information, and then there will be other times that I will have special guests joining me to offer information in their areas of expertise. You can expect life changing, thought provoking information with a little humor mixed in from time to time. And with that being said, let's jump into our first topic. With Mother's Day just around the corner, I thought that it'd be beneficial to cover a topic specifically targeted to mothers. As a professional counselor, I have the honor to serve many people and help them to navigate through difficult times, which is awesome experience. But I also see many needs. And one of those needs, we're going to discuss that today, and that is self-care. Today I have Tifani Kendrick with me to help discuss this topic. Tifani has worked with ladies in the area of self-care with the signature program called Breathe, and self-care is also an important part of her life as well. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I see such a need for mothers to practice self-care in my office on a weekly basis. Mothers tend to sacrifice a lot, which isn't an unhealthy thing, but it can become unhealthy if it's not balanced. So would you agree with that?
I agree. I agree that really everyone needs to practice self-care. And it can be very challenging to try to create a sense of harmony in your life when you know you're responsible for other human beings, right? As a mom.
Absolutely.
And their livelihood. And so they can be constantly trying to draw from you. And that's why self-care helps you remember to refuel and rejuvenate and make sure you have enough to pour out into your children.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. That's one thing that I see too, like mothers coming in just exhausted, just mentally exhausted, physically exhausted in every way. So I totally agree with you on that. Now, and that actually brings up another point here because, I've often heard people say that self-care is a selfish perspective. So I really would love for you to maybe talk about what self-care really is and why is that so important?
Yeah, I've heard that too. It can be considered vanity when you talk about self-care or when you become more aware of your own being and you decide to start really nourishing and nurturing yourself. People who aren't doing that can perceive that as a selfish act.
Right.
What I started to say is there's only one you. That's it.
That's good.
There's only one you. There's only one me. And if something happens where I no longer have the energy to pour out, then I can't do the work. I can't show up for my kids. And that's why we end up, that's one of the reasons why so many of us end up on the couch is because we haven't taken the time. So I feel like, and I believe in what I observe too, is that self-care is a necessity. It is just as much, it's a job, it's part of the job description. So whatever my job description is for whatever work I do, my self-care is the top of the agenda.
Right.
Again, because without me, the work's not going to get done. It's not going to get done well. So it's a perspective changer. And sometimes it doesn't happen until we hit bottom.
Right.
And we realize, or doctor says, right? Or therapist says, you have to take care of yourself.
Right.
And then we have to rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It really sounds like, we really should be in the perspective or mindset of prevention versus intervention, which I talk about that a lot. Let's get on the prevention side of things so that you don't have to have an intervention when you do hit bottom, right? Very, very good. Yes, I so agree with that. Can you give some helpful tips for mothers to keep balance, with their role as mom and also tending to themselves just as a woman? Can you give some tips about that?
First of all, just to even respond to the former question, the other part of it is what is self-care? I tend to practice a lot more of the inner self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say inner, I mean my mind, spirit, emotion. I really believe that self-care starts there, that it starts with a shift of perspective. It starts with really being aware of self,
Mm-hmm.
and treating. So one of the things I started to practice is treating myself with the same compassion as I would my children.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I role model that, then it's even coming from a more authentic place when I am mothering.
Yes.
So as far as a tip, it would be to define self-care for self.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for yourself. What is self-care? Some of us believe self-care is getting your nails done, getting your hair done, getting a massage. That can be an aspect of self-care.
Right.
But if you look at self-love as an umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
when you love anyone, there's a whole variety of ways you express that love.
Right.
Even if you have a particular love language. So getting to know yourself first is my utmost top priority as far as a tip. Know yourself. And if you sit there and you're like, I don't know what I would do if I had extra time or what I would do to care for myself, that means you need more time with yourself so that you can explore what that means.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So I know, we were talking kind of about these different tips and things like that. And I would kind of like you to maybe share some of the notes maybe that you came up with that you can give for mothers that maybe they can apply or implement, for themselves in this area.
Yeah, so as part of my Breathe program that God gave me in 2019, literally the top of 2019, I just remember over a season being told to breathe, and then it's broken down into 7 elements. So breathe stands for be, release, embrace, acknowledge, take action, help, and evolve. 7 elements. And through my program, I actually take women through that process. If you have a vision for your life, if you find yourself suffocating, just like I was when I started to really practice literally breathing, and then now this program, it can help you become more self-aware and start to know what your needs are. So the way this is broken down in the context of motherhood is being yourself, starting with that be yourself. So many times we lose ourselves in our roles and our responsibilities.
Absolutely.
We forget who we are. We neglect who we are. And then our families are getting like the tail end, right? They're getting the leftovers, even though we think, I'm giving everything, I'm sacrificing everything. What they're really getting are the leftovers.
Right.
Because you're giving more than what you're putting in. And that we get it for everything else except when it comes to self, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing, is be yourself. And then secondly, release the pressure. It's funny, on the way over here, the radio was talking about how hard we are on ourselves as mothers, right? Let's release the pressure. There's no perfection. There's no perfection. No such thing. No perfect mom, no perfect child, no perfect family, according to what we perceive perfection to be. So we get to define that too. A perfect day could be, I cried a little, laughed a little, and everybody went to bed safe. So let's alleviate that pressure. Let's release the pressure that we put on ourselves. Thirdly, embrace your process and the process of life. So my way of self-care and being and living and scheduling is not your way. Right. But does that work for you?
Exactly.
And actually asking ourselves that, is this working? How do I know if it's working or not? Like, we don't know whether or not we're raising good adults because they're children. Then they get grown and they make their own decisions. So, let's embrace the process of life, because we all get to make our own decisions, and understanding that it's unique to us. So define self-care for yourself, embrace your process of growing in that area. So acknowledge your needs would be the next thing. And that's tough, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do you even feel hearing acknowledge your needs? What came to mind when you heard that?
Oh my, I have so many. And it also brought to mind just a conversation that I had earlier this week with helping someone. What are your unmet needs? And they could not answer the question.
Yeah.
They could not answer the question. And so I think that is huge, just mentioning that.
And you see, that's like BREA. Like that's the fourth way,
Right.
kind of halfway point of being like, wait a minute, my needs? Because that can be the issue too. I haven't even asked myself what I need.
Exactly.
I haven't been asked what I need. So I don't even know what that looks like, right? Again, that's why quality time with self is important. And paying attention, self-awareness, paying attention to, just like a child will have a tantrum. What do we ask? Are you hungry? You sleepy? What do you need?
Right.
We need to do that to us. I'm irritated. What do I need? Maybe I need a nap. Y'all good? I'm taking a nap.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like sometimes it's real simple.
Yeah.
But it's necessary. So then taking action, like actually gathering the tools, having the challenging conversations to set boundaries is the next step. And that can become difficult.
Right.
Because it requires discipline, it requires courage. Like you have to actually take the steps now, not just say, oh, I need more me time. And then every time somebody calls on you, you're saying yes.
Right.
So you have to take action. That's the T in breathe. Value yourself as a priority. When I was working with some youth a while back, me and my team would step back, set the table, set the food out. Let's say it's pizza, right? Pizza and chips, staple for youth programs. Step back and the kids would rush in, eat all the pizza. And we'd be like, you hungry? Which ends, you come in to serve. And so we had that perspective. But we flipped it on them. We started saying team first. We started serving ourselves and then getting out the way. And then they had plenty to work with, right?
Right.
And I know that can really be difficult, but having that idea of I'm a priority.
Right.
So that I'm Mama Bird. I got to go get the worm first. Get some more to come back and bring to you. I can't just starve myself. I won't have the energy or anything to nourish you if I don't nourish me.
That's very good.
And then this is another hard one. Help. H stands for help. How hard is it, for us to ask for help? And that's really, again, where the process gets real. To actually practice interdependence, helping self, helping others, asking and receiving help. How powerful do you think that would be to model that for our children?
Extremely powerful. And that way, they can alleviate a lot of, I believe, they can alleviate a lot of like hardship and anxiety and all of that by simply saying, I need help. Frustration, I can think of many times, sometimes I'll just sit and watch them become frustrated just to kind of say, well, I wonder how long it's going to take them to just say, can someone please, help me? But sometimes they don't get to that point. And then we have to step in and say, would you like some help with that?
Yeah. And it goes all the way around, right? And as you're saying that, I'm hearing how God does us, right?
Absolutely.
You're just gonna, all right.
I'll wait.
I feel like that's how God does it. Like, I'll wait.
Right.
But the other thing too of like actually helping ourselves. So that's something I observe in my kids. Is like you asking me to open a jar, then clearly
you're more than capable of
doing that. That literally happened this morning. I'm like, you could have opened that all on your own. We want to teach interdependence,
right?
Where where we can say, I'm strong enough to do this, but I don't need to do it all by myself all the time,
right?
And I have gifts to offer others. So it goes, in all three ways. And then lastly, evolve means to, in that evolution, which was a big deal for me, because I think that word has made people uncomfortable at times, just like self-care.
Right.
Like evolve. We don't evolve. People don't change. People don't. Well, hopefully we're growing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what thriving means.
To
grow.
Right.
In this process, evolving means to really be aware of and celebrate your growth.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do so much as moms, we don't always look and say, "Oh, wait a minute now, I've come along. I didn't scream at the top of my lungs this
Right.
time."
Yeah.
Might have been more toward the middle of my lungs.
Like very good. Yeah. Celebrating the success.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we're growing too. They're watching us grow.
Right.
Oh, I actually apologize. I mean, there are times I've apologized for yelling. There are times I have not. And felt perfectly okay with not. So I think that's important. And just to even bring this back to the practical, breathing, literally stopping to, that is so powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Because it gives us pause, it gives room for prayer, it gives room for meditation. And so I did even list some suggestions too of ways that we can express self-care. But for me, this inner work, this inner self-care of actually physically breathing and growing through this process, that's what really matters. Because then you decide, well, do I need this? What works for me in this season?
Yeah, I mean, I thank you so much for that. Everything that you said was like literally on point. Sometimes like in the counseling world, we're teaching these things without necessarily the 7 things, but I love that because it's easier, I think, for people to remember. Like, okay, I can remember breathe.
It's easy for me to
remember.
It's
easy for me too. If it's easy for me, honey, it's good. Okay. But I can remember, that word breathe, like, I'm like, it was the breathe program, right? I just remembered the word. And I love how, you kind of talk about how we get lost in kind of our roles. I mean, just all of that is excellent. These are things that I feel like I have to kind of talk about on a weekly basis with mothers and almost like just with women. Because there's this idea that I have to be strong. So I see a lot of young ladies or women really in particular that really have gotten lost, because you mentioned kind of like losing ourselves and our roles and kind of things like that. And that is so true, because I have a lot of women that come and they kind of have this idea about what strength is. Like, I have to be this strong woman.
Superwoman.
Yep, I have to be superwoman. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And, but then at the end of the day, you don't really know who you are.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask someone, well, who are you? They're going to tell you what they do.
What they do. Yeah.
They're not going to tell you who they are.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us probably have gone through that. And then you have to spend time kind of trying to uncover and kind of sift through, who am I really? Not who am I, or who was formed because I had trauma, or not who was formed because of my experiences, but who am I really? Who was I destined or designed to be?
Yes.
And so that's one thing I really love about just the Breathe program that you have, and that it can help women to really uncover who they are. In particular, I know this episode is about mothers, but before you are a mother, you're a woman. And I think that's so important. To remember that before you're a mother, you are a woman. So what are you doing to care for her?
Yes.
What are you doing to take care of her? I was sharing with someone who is having a difficult time being compassionate toward themselves. You mentioned that a little bit earlier, and they were having a hard time, and so I just really believe that it was really just divinely given. And I just asked the question and said, so instead of taking care of yourself, you're going to punish yourself just like your abuser did.
Yes.
Instead of being compassionate to that inner child that's inside of you.
That's where I was going next too.
Yeah. Be compassionate. Treat yourself the way you would have wanted these individuals in your life to treat you.
Yes.
Don't continue the cycle. That's how the cycle is broken.
Yes.
And so I believe, though, this misunderstanding of self-care and the importance of it, I think that it really keeps a lot of women and mothers bound.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Not free.
It does. And it perpetuates the cycle, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
We show our children, well, I'm not worthy. I'm not valuable. I'm not enough for quality time, for care.
Mm-hmm.
So I just constantly give it out.
Right.
Right. So what are our children really observing in that? Right. They're still observing that devaluing of self.
Yes.
Even though we think we're saying, you're so important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll go to bed exhausted or don't sleep at all, trying to take care of everybody else.
Right.
When you talked earlier about balance, maybe it's finding harmony to say, as I care for you,
mm-hmm.
I understand I'm caring for you, for myself,
mm-hmm.
and vice versa. As I take, so for me, when I start my day, like today,
right,
rolling over,
mm-hmm.
grabbing my devotional,
mm-hmm.
reading some scripture, pausing to breathe, journaling emotions that come up as I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I was angry about why was I feeling angry, and really allowing myself that time to process, having conversation with myself.
That is so good.
Like, what am I saying to myself, right? So am I attentive to my thoughts? As I'm doing that, I'm actually alleviating some tension.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I'm with my kids, even if we're rushing,
mm-hmm. right,
there's a peacefulness attached to it, and more love
mm-hmm.
than anger and frustration.
That is so good. Something just came to me as you were talking, that part of self-care also includes confrontation of self.
Yes.
Like what is
that
going on? Yeah, like what is going on inside of me right now? Why am I feeling? See, feelings are not bad things.
No.
We tend to think that they are.
Yeah.
But they're really not bad things. Feelings are wonderful. They are indicators.
Yes.
They are indicators for us to take a pause and breathe and say, okay,
what's happening?
What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's good you said, when
mm-hmm.
you said confront yourself, I did this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was experiencing some defensiveness, and I was like, what am I trying to defend?
Right.
So I went through this process, and I actually was like, I'm going to go live and talk about this
mm-hmm.
because this is an ego thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us don't have conversations. We try to avoid the ego.
Right.
When really the ego is part of our identity that indicates
mm-hmm.
a need. So at the end of the day,
mm-hmm.
I was able to say, okay, no, I just need to feel validated.
Yeah.
But do I need it do I need that from somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm gonna sit here and affirm my own self.
Right.
Talk to God and get some,
right.
you know
That's
what
good.
I mean, and refuel
mm-hmm.
so that the rest of my intentions moving forward aren't from
mm-hmm.
a fearful place.
Mm-hmm.
It's from a loving place. So moving into love, because that's what mothers, right? Mothers do. We love, we
mm-hmm.
nurture. First, learning what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that love comes from God through us.
Right.
Doesn't skip over us.
Right.
And go to everybody else that we trying to love on. So when I look at it that way, love your neighbor as yourself, or however we want to, pull for that. Love is coming to and through me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to filter through me first.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So let me love me, and let me let God love me.
Right.
So by the time I'm expressing love to my children, to my family,
mm-hmm.
it's coming from an honest, open, authentic, not a fearful place.
mm-hmm.
Because I'm already full. I already know I'm loved.
Right.
I don't have to try to prove anything or try to pull anything from you.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
So
and
good.
all of this
mm-hmm.
takes practice.
Absolutely.
Just like breathing. We
mm-hmm.
don't, okay, I got breathing down. I don't need to do that anymore. Good job. I breathed enough today.
Right.
I'm so proud of me. No, like all day long we're in and out.
Yes.
We just don't even notice it.
Right.
Right? That's self-care can become that kind of practice.
Absolutely.
We're all day long
mm-hmm.
pausing to pray, paying attention. Okay, let me take my nap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what did I eat?
Right.
Okay, did I move my body?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to set an appointment?
Mm-hmm.
We learn to pay attention to ourselves, and I notice myself being more attentive to my children.
Right.
Like really leaning into them and being able to be more present with them because I've taken the time for me.
Right. And that right there is called discipline.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, consistent discipline.
Right.
Yes.
Progress.
Absolutely. Yep. And I believe that's what we are all striving for.
Yes.
We're in this progression.
Yeah.
And being willing to change is one of the most critical pieces in all of this.
Yeah.
In all of this. So I just love this. And I could go on for hours.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you could too,
stuff.
right?
Especially not having had conversations
right
in real life with people.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And so listen, I know that you do a lot of work with ladies. And so I just want you to just give a few minutes explanation of maybe what you offer or what you're doing on social media and those kinds of things.
Okay, yeah. So right now, so I do have the Breathe Easy program, and that is a coaching opportunity for a small cohort. I love working with women one-on-one and then being able to gather in small groups and just process together. So I'm really passionate about that. Being able to, like I said earlier, just take people through that process. We literally sit and breathe together first. Like we breathe and pray to even start our sessions.
Yes.
And then going through that process. So that's my coaching program. But also on social media, I'm just enjoying inspiring people. As God gives me something and something drops, I'm just like, okay, maybe this needs to be shared because it'll bless somebody else. Right. So right now at Tifani K Inspires on Instagram would be one way to just kind of follow the evolution of this work. But also on Facebook, because I tend to go live on Facebook a little more. I just finished 21 Days to Thrive. So anyone who's online who just kind of needs encouraged to grow could go back and view some of those videos, have a conversation, and reach out to me. I'm working on publishing a poetry book.
Yay.
So I'm pretty excited about that because I finally got someone else's eyes on it. And I'm just, again, what I'm learning to do is nurture a vision rather than just kind of like I'm so excited for you nurturing your vision. But that goes along with anything. Nurture self. We got to nurture our dreams too. So it's all a process, but I love reaching out to people through social media right now. I have a Gmail account.
Yes,
so
please
people
give
want
that.
to email me at
please give that.
Tifani K Inspires, TIFANIK Inspires @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Then they can be in touch that way too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I'm sure that everyone who will watch will get some powerful information, life-transforming information, if applied. If applied. So thank you again. I am sure I'll be reaching out again to have you back
Please.
on.
This is awesome.
For sure. We hope that this information leads to healthy transformation in your life, spirit, soul, and body. And if you have any questions or if you have topics that you'd like to hear more about, I'd love to hear from you. And I also would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have during our next episode. Please send all questions by email to thrivingfamshow@gmail.com. And please make sure to tune in next time as we discuss more topics that impact the family system. Thank you so much for watching the Thriving Family Show, where we are helping families heal and thrive.